吃货玩家，吃货玩家。
观众朋友，你们好！今天呢，就是我们中国的大年三十儿，不过这是现在北京时间大年三十儿，过12小时呢是美国的大年三十儿。那么每逢佳节倍思亲，现在我们那个全球华语人文频道，观众大家更关心的就是我们很多朋友有没有回到家乡，回到亲人身边，共同团聚欢庆春节佳节呢？这次由于疫情很多人都回不去，也有很多人呢在国内回不来，所以呢，我们这次的春节特殊节目呢，就是想选择2位曾经回到国内去过年的著名的艺术家，他们回去过年的实况，播给大家看一看。我们呢今天推出的这2位艺术家是大名鼎鼎的周氏兄弟，很多人都知道。他们2位呢是当代活着的画家里边，从艺术造诣、商业价值都是排在前10位的，甚至排在前2位。这周氏兄弟呢，当时在1986年从广西来到我们芝加哥，而后呢在芝加哥办画展，就在芝加哥呢就定居了下来。后来他们2个的作品呢，相继的在美国非常非常轰动，在美国呢最高层的这个艺术界的人一致认可他们是当代最伟大的画家。那么胡锦涛主席来访问的时候呢，奥巴马总统接见他，当时送给他的国礼就是周氏兄弟的一幅巨幅的一个抽象派的画，当然有多位美国总统在上面出现。这幅画非常有纪念价值。那么周氏兄弟呢，上次回国过年，这是对国内来讲，艺术界也是一个大事，在北京回到老家广西。所以呢，我们今天呢，石头剪刀布全球华语人文频道正好利用这个吃货与玩家这个栏目，给大家介绍一下周氏兄弟回家过年，请大家收看。
The Spring Festival, more famously known as Chinese New Year, is the most important festival for the Chinese. A time for reuniting with loved ones and indulging in the traditions of old. A time for family and filial piety. Ethnic Chinese around the world celebrate Chinese New Year with pomp and circumstance. And countries besides China are starting to recognize the significance of this auspicious festival.
Because today we say yes to Lunar New Year as a school holiday in New York City.
The announcement prompted these 2 Chinese Americans to take a bold and much-awaited step. For the first time in 30 years, they will be returning to China to celebrate Chinese New Year.
30 years is a very long time, so we feel like 30 years we've been missing so much.
Brothers Zhou Sanzhou and Zhou Duahuang left for the United States of America in 1985 and went on to become a household name in the world of contemporary art by creating pieces that brought East and West together. Today, this world-famous artistic duo are embarking on a new journey. They're coming home.
Since I left China, I never been celebrate the Chinese New Year in China the last 30 years. Only can imagine, from the memory.
Their walk down memory lane in search of the spirit of the Lunar New Year began in their hometown of Guangxi. With a long-awaited reunion with family, But their journey doesn't end here. The brothers have one last stop before they head back to the US. The heart of China, Beijing City, where they will reunite with friends they haven't seen in decades, in a city that has undergone one of the biggest transformations in recent times. Join the Zhou brothers as they bring East and West, tradition and progress, the past and the future together this Lunar New Year. Beijing, the capital of China. World-renowned artist duo, the Zhou brothers, are here in this ancient city for the biggest and most beloved Chinese festival, Chinese New Year.
Chinese New Year has been my favorite holiday before I left for United States. So I always missing this favorite holiday in the last 30 years.
Since I left China, I never been celebrate the Chinese New Year in China. Many great memories. That's a good food. That's I'm missing the most. Like the zhongzi, sticky rice, 5 different color. Good. Now I'm so excited. Say we come to celebrate the Chinese New Year in China.
Brothers Zhou Shenzhou and Zhou Duahuang first left China in 1985 to make it big in the United States. This is the first time that they will be celebrating Chinese New Year in the country.
小时候我们就玩这个东西了。
小时候找树杈，
对，找市场。
你这个做的比较好看啊。
咱们这个是拿那个机器爆了一下，然后有胶合的。
对，你这个。
但这个是在中国是可以带上街吗？
对啊，可以。
是啊。
对啊，木质的可以，铁质的。
凡是男孩都会玩。
对。
As the most important festival for the ethnic Chinese, it's a time when families come together to celebrate kinship, filial piety, and honour their elders. And a time to revisit old traditions and get reacquainted with the symbols of Chinese culture, like these scented sachets. Known in ancient times as fragrant bags, even today they adorn Chinese homes during Lunar New Year, signifying different designs.
香包年年有余，哎，双铃铛的，绿色比较洋气，红色的比黄色的比较那个，黄色显富贵，拿黄色的嘛，黄色显富贵。哎，对，纸符，好吧？好了。哎，好嘞，哎，一共是30块钱啊。哎，好了，哎，好嘞，好，慢走啊，哎，再见啊。谢谢啊。
The brothers find themselves in a familiar place, Tiananmen Square.
Tiananmen is the #1 place you must go.
The brothers once brought their mother to visit Tiananmen Square during Chinese New Year. They still remember that day vividly.
We have a nice picture with the mom and the whole family. Take a picture.
Have a picture
in
there.
front of the.
I was so proud and feel so special, you know. In China, the Chinese New Year, I think, is the must. rich or poor or different, in the different job, you must go home.
Chunyun, the Chinese New Year travel season, has been described as the largest annual human migration in the world. Every year, hundreds of millions of Chinese return home to ring in this auspicious start to their year with their families.
But they're happy, you know. That's one of the, once a year, the special time and happy time to celebrate together with the whole family.
Chinese New Year is also a time for delicious food. The Zhou brothers are at Karochi restaurant. It has been around for more than 150 years, serving some of the most authentic Beijing Chinese New Year dishes.
With the lamb, it's really delicious.
Certain dishes are eaten for their symbolic meaning. Lucky food is served during the 15-day festival to bring good luck to the new year. Not only the food itself, but the way it is prepared, served and eaten is very special and significant.
That means sweet, and cozy and all time.
Savouring these dishes reminded the brothers of their time as students in Beijing. Zhou Sanzhou and Zhou Dahuang first came to Beijing to study at the National Academy for Arts and Crafts. Their contemporary art style experimented with Eastern and Western influences and made them the most famous painters of their generation in mainland China during the 80s. In 1985, they took a chance and moved to the United States to showcase their art on the world stage. In the time they have been away, Beijing and indeed China has undergone a massive economic transformation.
30 years ago is totally a brand new Beijing, give that the first expression.
Before
That
we
time
left
is,
for 1985, everything is not so modern. The whole city that time is still pretty calm. No skyline.
No skyline, and then not so many cars.
Towering evidence of this transformation, this. The Beijing National Stadium, also known as the Bird's Nest, was designed and built for the 2008 Olympics. The Zhou brothers, like other Chinese around the world, felt a surge of pride when they saw it on their televisions. But now, they're setting foot inside the architectural marvel for the first time.
That's amazing. You know, it's the first time here.
More, we only see it from
here. You can see the whole sky.
Opening. Now it's so grand. Wow.
Costing almost $500 million, the behemoth is the world's largest steel structure and the most complex stadium in the world.
It's kind of architecture in Beijing that really represent the changing.
The modern time.
But it's hardly China's first contribution to the world of epic architecture.
I feel my heart is pumping. The Great Wall is always in a memory in the heart, but it's the feeling a little bit in a different way. The feel the still grand, a lot of things changing. A lot of things is different today, but the Great Wall still stand there. It look like still the same.
The Zhou brothers have a history with the Great Wall of China. In 2011, the artistic duo was commissioned by the White House to create an art piece in honor of then Chinese President Hu Jintao's visit to the United States. Their painting, in their unique style of blending East and West, melded imagery of the Great Wall and portraits of 8 US presidents.
I think the Great Wall is one of the amazing things can imagine happened in the human history. The grand, the mysterious, and actually it's back to many thousand years ago from the Qin Dynasty, Han Dynasty. In the Chinese, they have that kind of thought. If you have not been to the Great War, you did not consider to be the great man. When
So
was
we-
the first time?
I think we came here the first time is
The
like
78.
78. Just like I
right.
remember we just like left the village, not so
Right.
far, not so long.
That time we both much younger.
The Great Wall has stood for more than 2,000 years. The longest wall in the world. It is an awe-inspiring feat of ancient defensive architecture that draws over 10 million people each year.
So
Yes,
Great Wall
the
is
state-
always one of the great symbols for Chinese and even for the whole Asia.
Right.
That's why like when we create a painting from a U.S. president and Great Wall.
And it's easy to see why. In recent times, the Great Wall has also become a big part of the Chinese New Year festivities. But the age-old traditions of reuniting with friends and family during the festive period remain strong. And that's why the Zhou brothers are here at the Hutong to see their friend, Wang Yi, whom they haven't seen in 3 decades.
I always encourage like how the people, that kind of lot of family live together, how they spend time, how they celebrate the Chinese New Year.
Right now, the Hutong and the Chinese courtyard, compared with today, the modern life have a great contrast.
Contrast and very different,
Yeah.
but it's amazing. A lot of people still live here.
A hutong is an old lane or alley that has preserved the old way of life in Beijing and the richness of traditional Beijing culture.
Only that kind of old courtyard, the hutong, the life sometimes a couple hundred years, almost a couple thousand years, they still the same. That's amazing.
慢点儿，慢点儿，车高慢点儿，好的。
Wang Yi warmly invited Sanzhou and Da Huang to his home to partake in the Chinese New Year festivities when he heard they were visiting Beijing.
赶紧就要打扫卫生，把屋给它整饰一新，锅呀、
旧的
各方面儿
去旧
能用的东
迎新
西呀，
的
对，都给打扫干净。30当时开始的时候呢，上午就开始，起床以后就开始贴对联儿。
During Chinese New Year, the Chinese paste red couplets that are short poems or inspirational slogans around their house to welcome the return of spring. In his first attempt at calligraphy in 30 years, Shenzhou has chosen the lines, "When the country is strong and flourishing, its people will lead prosperous lives." It's a fervent wish for both Wang Yi's family and his homeland, China. With the reminiscing done, it's now time for one of the most significant traditions of Chinese New Year's Eve, making dumplings. With a history of more than 1,800 years, dumplings are especially popular in northern China. They are shaped to look like Chinese silver ingots that were traditionally used as currency. Legend has it that the more dumplings you eat during Chinese New Year, the more wealth you will gain in the coming year.
这都是
我
咱们是
擀皮的。
您包这也行啊，也可以。
不太好。你在传统上只是过年才包饺子是吧？过去
平常也吃，
平常也吃，主要是三十儿。三十儿12点打钟的那会儿，坐着要开锅，饺子要下锅，下锅煮饺子。
就是到那个
钟点正好12点的时候吃饺子。捞的时候呢，一定要剩，锅里的要剩俩，要剩，盘子呢也要剩俩啊。所以呢，年年呢老有余，饿不着啊。这个都是长辈给留下来的。
An old Chinese New Year tradition used to see a coin hidden in one of the dumplings. The one who found the coin was said to have found good fortune in the year ahead.
找枣的话，这个。
这个他知道。
我觉得这个形状太明显了。
These days, though, the coin has been replaced by symbolic foods to grant specific wishes. With the dumplings done, Shenzhou and Da Huang are ready to hit the town and see how the rest of Beijing is celebrating the Spring Festival. When they first came to the city as art students, they couldn't afford to go home to Guangxi to celebrate with their family. So they formed a tradition of their own, dining with friends and watching the Beijing Opera.
Those friends, we know them for many years. Those friends is like the one you never have a contact with them like for all the year, but when you call them, they're always there. So that's why it's great to see them.
The Zhou brothers are at Wanfeng Snack City, a restaurant known for Chinese New Year delights. It houses hundreds of dishes from all around China. The Beijing Opera originated in the 17th century, usually depicting historical themes. It is regarded as the essence of the Chinese dramatic arts. During Chinese New Year, the Beijing Opera typically draws large crowds because they showcase uplifting stories in Chinese history. Similar to the operas in the West, the Beijing Opera is a combination of singing, dancing, martial arts, music, and literature. The costumes themselves are works of art, often handcrafted. Around the world, the Beijing Opera has been rising in popularity since the early 20th century, creating ties between the East and the West. During Chinese New Year, the Beijing Opera brings together the young and the old to feast on a visual cornucopia of Chinese history.
One thing of the Chinese culture, it will be continued always.
They will have a strong...
Peking opera is a really strongly represent Peking, the culture.
国剧.
This will be forever. Maybe like a different, some younger generation, in the beginning, maybe they are not so into it. But sooner or later, they will realize that's very important. That's really unique and represent this Beijing.
I think they need the great artists to continue to carry or develop the tradition. Yeah, they little bit like today. They have so many things coming up, like the movie and the internet and so many things. But the Beijing Opera is still so special. I think in the future should be have more and more that kind of great artists to carry the tradition, to develop it.
The Zhou brothers have come a long way in just 2 weeks. Their journey began in Chicago, US, and took them back to their hometown, Guangxi, in southern China, where they reunited with their family they hadn't seen in years.
Come back, you know, the feeling a little bit like when we was
a little boy.
A little boy, the happiness, you know, you're just so happy.
Yeah.
You know,
so you remember the sound, even the smell.
Yeah, to see the对联, see the lantern or something, you just feel so happy.
In the time-honoured Chinese New Year tradition of paying your respects to your elders and ancestors, Da Huang and Shenzhou got the chance to remember their mother, who passed away in 1999.
We feel like mommy always wish her son doing great, but we feel so sorry to mom. He did not see what we, you know, have been dealt with today.
Celebrating old Chinese New Year traditions with their loved ones in their hometown of Guangxi also helped them in creating something new, a painting to reflect their feelings of kinship and harmony during the Spring Festival in China, a homage to the traditions of old and the transformation of people and places since they've been away. A way to always keep the Chinese New Year spirit in their hearts. It's a big night. The Zhou brothers are about to do what they do best, collaborate and bring the past and present together. In the ancient practice of Chinese New Year, they are throwing a reunion dinner.
Tonight we're going to have a big celebration for the New Year celebration in our studio. And we have a lot of good friends, old friends, and all the performing artists.
Only this time, in typical modern fashion, they are expanding the meaning of family to include their friends and peers.
That would be a great evening.
After 30 years in America, I almost forget, you know, today I realize I miss so much. I would like all my American friends to know how Chinese people celebrate the Chinese New Year.
今天晚上非常激动，跟在座的好朋友们，我们欢度中国的大年夜，新年快乐
！Happy New Year！
A joyous dinner full of great food, great laughter, and reconnecting with friends brings a harmonious end to the Zhou brothers' eventful trip. A cultural smorgasbord of musical performances rings in the new year for Shenzhou and Da Huang and their peers.
And in the future, we'd love to make it opening in Beijing and Europe. And also, we would love to set up the studio in Beijing, come back, spend some time in China, create some new work, but of course, still a lot of time a home base like in the States and Europe, and that's what we love to do.
Bringing to a close an emotional ride filled with nostalgia, cultural appreciation, and remembering the important things in life. Creating heartfelt memories with family and friends.
春节快乐！春节快乐！